Today, we got another reveal for the upcoming Old School RuneScape League. In this reveal, they broke down every single Echo Boss as well as the items we're looking to get out of them. So this was actually a pretty massive drop right here. I'm just gonna summarize this whole thing as quickly as I possibly can, and I'll give you guys my overall thoughts at the end. But let's go ahead and jump on into it here with the Caridian Desert, where you're gonna be fighting the Echo version of the Calphite Queen. This is gonna have the ability to land you the Dry Gore Blowpipe, which is similar to the Toxic Blowpipe, but it has a special effect here where it rolls for accuracy twice, and it's gonna take the highest result. Its attack rate is also at 2 ticks, so this is an incredibly fast range weapon here. But let's go ahead and move on over into Asgarnia, where you're gonna be taking on the Echo version of the Cerberus boss. This is gonna have the ability to get you the Dog Sword, which has a special attack that combines the abilities of every single God Sword, meaning that you're gonna knock some defense off of the monster, you're gonna gain some accuracy, you're gonna heal a bit. I think this is an interesting Echo boss drop, but I don't know how I feel about this. I probably wasn't going down the melee route anyways, so this probably isn't something I'm gonna grind. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this. But let's go ahead and move on to the Wilderness. We're gonna be taking on the Echo version of the King Black Dragon. You're gonna be able to land the Thunder Khopesh as well as the Thousand Dragon Ward. The Thunder Khopesh is a powerful one-handed weapon, which has a special ability that gives you a 20% chance to bring down some lightning and cause some AoE damage, as well as a special attack which really packs a punch as well. But then we move over into the Thousand Dragon Ward, and this shield is powerful in and of itself, being the fact that it will protect you from essentially all of the negative effects that you can have happen in the game. Venom, poison, dragon fire. There's a whole list of things that this shield will protect you from. And since I spend most of my time inside of the Wilderness in the main game, there's practically a 0% chance I pick Wilderness inside of League. But with this reward, I'm almost kind of leaning that way. Let's go ahead and move on into Morytania, where you're going to be taking on the Echo version of the Grotesque Guardian. You're going to be able to land yourself something called the Gloves of the Damned from this, which essentially are Barrow's gloves stat-wise, but the special effect here is really going to buff Barrow's armor. The gloves are not only going to act as if you have an Amulet of the Damned equipped, but it's also going to double the power of the special effects of each Barrow's set. This is a really interesting one, and I keep waffling back and forth on whether or not I want to go with Morytania, and I'm just not sure if this reward here pushes me over the edge. But let's go ahead and move on into the Fremnik region, where you're obviously going to be taking on the Echo version of the Dagannoth Kings. You're going to be able to get the Amulet of the Monarchs as well as the Emperor Ring from these Echo bosses, and while these don't have any special effects, they are in themselves very powerful pieces of jewelry. So if you end up picking the Fremnik region, these are definitely some pieces of jewelry that you're going to want to get your hands on. But let's go ahead and move on into Kandarin, where you're going to be taking on the Echo version of the Thermonuclear Smoke Devil. From this, you're going to be able to get yourself the Devil's Element, and this is essentially an offhand mage weapon shield, whatever you want to call it, that is going to buff the amount of damage that you do against monsters' weaknesses, meaning that if a monster is weak to fire, you're going to do a lot more. I think it's 200% more damage with the fire spells. On top of that, this offhand shield here does act as every single elemental rune. So that's a little bit of a buff there. But overall, this is probably the weakest of the rewards, in my opinion. They're almost using it to try and bring other weapons up to the place of the Tumican Shadow. Whereas in reality, people are probably still just going to end up main-handing the Tumican Shadow. But let's go ahead and move on into Tyrannwyn, with probably the most interesting Echo boss being the Gauntlet. The reason I think this is so cool, so interesting, is because you're going to get something that allows you to skip the Gauntlet's preparation phase, which is going to dump you right into the fight with a decent gear setup, not having to waste any time in preparation. You're going to be able to get yourself the Crystal Blessing from this, which is going to make the Crystal Armor even more powerful by bringing the Crystal Armor effects to other weapons inside of the game. Let's move on to Kourend, though, where we have the Echo version of the Hespori boss, and you're not going to have to wait for a seed to be grown here. This is kind of similar to the Chaos Gauntlet. You're going to get an item that should just put you directly into the fight. The same can be said with the Cerberus and Thermonuclear Smoke Devil Echo bosses, and you won't have to have a task just to complete the Echo boss version of those fights. But with Hespori, you're going to be looking at landing yourself something called the Nature's Reprisal. This is probably the most interesting reward from all of the Echo bosses. It is a weapon that can act as both a melee, range, and magic weapon. It's actually wild. It gets charged with nature runes and earth runes, and the melee version of this weapon actually attacks things from a range, so you can actually safe spot melee more reliably than you can with the halberd. This is definitely a reward that has piqued my interest, but let's move on to the final one, being Varlamore. Varlamore is going to have you take on an Echo version of this soul guy here, and you're going to be able to get yourself the Sunlight Spear as well as Sunlit Bracers. There's a lot going on with this spear here. It's a two-handed weapon that gives you some defensive bonuses, but it also does something to where each attack that you land grants you something called a stack of sunlight. You can have up to 20 of these stacks, and essentially what these are going to do is either directly feed into your special attack bar, or they're going to boost your special attack by allowing you to use 7 of the sunlight stacks in order to do a massive chunk of AoE damage. Moving on to the Sunlit Bracers, though, these are actually insane. Probably one of the most powerful Echo boss drops that we have coming out, because the special effect here is going to increase all healing received by 100%, meaning sharks are going to heal you for 40, Ceradomin Brew Sips for 20, We're talking about massive healing gains here. And while you do get buffed inside of leagues with combat-wise and whatnot, extra healing is definitely not something to scoff at. But that's it. Those are all of the Echo bosses, and those are all of the Echo boss drops planned on coming into the leagues. Now I want to talk a little bit about my reactions to all of this. And initially, my knee-jerk reaction is this sucks for range. There's one range weapon in here. And yeah, some of the gloves and stuff passively will help you, but it feels like they went so much harder on melee than they did for mage or they did for range. And it's just, I don't know. I don't understand. And for me, I feel like they always do this with this game. It's been happening since way back in the day. And I'm PKing using crossbow bolts that cost me an arm and a leg, and somebody's just sitting out there with a whip doing just as much. You know what I'm saying? Like, range has always, to me, been one of the underloved combat stats inside of RuneScape, and I might be a little bit biased because it's my favorite combat to train, but I think the proof's in the pudding here with only one Echo boss weapon being range. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. This doesn't really change up my game plan overall. I just need to figure out what secondaries I want to grab, because most likely I'm going to go with range this time around. As we get closer to the launch of leagues, I will drop a finalized game plan video, but that's all I wanted to break down inside of this one. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I'm out.